So I just watched Werewolves and holy crap, amazing. So it comes out this Friday, correct? On
This Friday,
December.
December 6th.
Awesome. Well, I watched it twice now and fucking love it.
Awesome.
So how did you get involved with this project?
The script came to me through a couple different sources back in 2019, and I really loved it. Right off the bat, I couldn't believe how many werewolves they were trying to get on screen, and so I was to me was something that I felt like I needed to do. And lucky enough, I had just made a movie called Line of Duty with producers Miles Nistel and Craig Chapman, and the movie did well for them, made them some money. So they were like, "What can we do next?" And I was like, "I don't know if you're willing to tackle a genre piece, but I'm really looking to get back into horror, and this seems like a fun way to do it." So they loved it. They latched on quick, and we started rolling.
Nice. Um, and now, it is action, but it is horror. Like, is it like a tricky thing to kind of get that balance just right of like action and horror?
Yeah, it is because you're dealing with two genres that are very specific and deserve specific things, and you want to be able to show the audience what they need to see. So it is a little tricky, but I do find that where they're very similar is timing, and action's all about timing, horror is all about timing. So like if you can get those two to play nice together, then the movie really starts to stand on its own. And I was lucky enough to have a really great editor on board this movie, Greg McLennan, who did a great job finding that delicate balance with me.
Yeah, I mean the energy is just so frenetic and awesome. I loved it. It really grips you, and I took note that this is anchored with like a lot of emotion too. Like that's so awesome. Like how important was it to kind of ground this um very fantastical movie with like some real world like stakes and emotion?
Yeah, when you're going in and you're making a movie like this, you know what you're leaning into. What the audience initially is getting, what they're thinking is Frank Grillo versus werewolves, which is the hook, right? Like that's what it is. But what you're trying to do as a filmmaker is trying to give them a little something that when they get into the movie that they didn't expect that was going to happen. And that is character, that is the stakes, that is, finding some heart in the movie. And Frank Grillo does a great job with Ilfina Shadera, the mom, who really, they're a different kind of family because it's not the typical mother daughter father relationship. This is his brother's family, and so he's trying to figure out how to take care of him. He's been a guy that hasn't had to deal with a family his whole life, and now he's thrust into dealing with having a family and leaving them. And so it is a total emotional stake that we had to really try to figure out how to make feel like it's part of the movie without it bogging the movie down. But it was something that we really leaned on to give it some heart.
Yeah, and I think, that balance is great. I mean, I appreciated the fact that it is also so pulpy, like the sci-fi stuff is just so good.
Yeah.
It's nice because it's not like it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's not like does it ever go like overboard? Was there anything that got scrapped that maybe went a little bit too over into maybe like overtly comedy?
Totally. There's definitely like I think the bite me line is probably the farthest we went when and maybe he said hairy motherfuckers or something at one point. But like, there were some lines that went really far and Frank looked at me and was like, dude, and we knew. We knew when he would try to say it, we were like, yeah, let's pull that back. Let's peel this back. Let's not go there. I mean, we knew what we were making. We knew and you're right, the pulp aspect. Like, look, I'm a big Dark Castle, late 90s Dark Castle guy. Like I
Yes.
love their movies. Then it's an 80s film too, fans. So, we knew what we were trying to make and we were trying to give fans. And so we did try to go, okay, we don't want to go too far in the winky wink category and make it too funny, but we wanted the audience to have fun. That was a no doubter. We wanted them to sit with popcorn and just have a total blast.
Yeah, and just like I also just really appreciated how amazing it's shot, like composition, some of the match cuts, like just how I was talking about how frenetic it is, like the action, but like also just how like, from a visual standpoint, how it's just so I don't want to say maybe in your face, but just so um like it really propels the movie forward. And
Yeah.
Is that all, due to kind of like you've been doing a lot of action movies lately, so that's kind of like,
I think
figuring out
that's
that.
Yeah, I think that's just my DNA too. My DNA as a filmmaker tends to be more kinetic, and I like that sort of thing. And my DP on this film, Brandon Cox, who's been most of my action film DP, and he really understands what I love and what I like to get across from when it comes to camera work. I mean, I'm also a big video game guy, so the more
Mm.
video game kind of feel to me felt like this kind of movie, like a Resident Evil type deal. So that was something that we looked at very early on. But Brandon just as a DP, as a cinematographer, he just really understands where to put the lens, where to put the camera, how to make it feel cinematic. I mean, we're making the movie for a budget, so you're trying to get the movie to feel as big as possible, knowing you're an independent film. So it was really cool to have someone that really understands that part of it and kind of matches with you as far as cinematic brain goes. So we were really having fun with throwing out references, whether it was like, dude, remember that shot in The Howling? Like that's what I wanted to. Remember that shot in Demons? I want it to be like this, And so, it was fun to have someone kind of bounce those ideas off of.
That's awesome. And I think, like, I mean, honestly, I could like tell that every component was working so well. So it must have been like somebody you collaborated with a lot. Like, was there anybody else, besides your DP that like you had worked on a lot?
Yeah, my production designer we worked with quite a bit was Tyler Heron. What's cool about Tyler is he did a movie Margot with me, but he
Mm,
before that he also did the Muppets TV show for Apple TV,
mm.
and so he was really good at knowing puppeteering, and we had so much of that happening in the movie with the practical effects and animatronics. So he was really great at building what we needed to have built set wise to sort of be able to do that. I mean, we have a wolf inside of a set, and it had to be big enough for this guy to get in and move and do things and crashing things and destroying things. So, he was really great. Then there was my stunt coordinator who I had worked with before, and then just the producers in general. Like I said, Craig Chapman and Miles Vistel. It's really great when you have guys like that on your side who are producing the movie and have done it with you. They've kind of went through the trenches with you already, came out on the other side, made a great movie. So when going into this one, it was kind of like, okay, now we know how each other work. It was a little bit actually easier process, but it's not without its challenges. It's just a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And you were talking a little bit about the werewolves, and holy crap, they look so awesome. I think they might be some of my favorite werewolves in recent history. Like,
That's awesome.
um, yeah, so I would love to hear more about like the process of like, making these puppets, and like what the ratio between like physical, practical werewolf effects versus like CGI.
Yeah. So look, it's Alec Gillis and Tom Woodrell, legends. They
Mm,
did Pumpkinhead, they did Alien, they did Predator. These guys understood how to build creatures. They understood how to puppeteer creatures. They knew going in when I came to them and said, "Look, my gut is telling me 90% of this needs to be practical. We need to push practical as hard as we can." But I also wasn't discounting that there was going to be CGI in the movie because look, I'm a fan of CGI if it's done correctly and mixed well with practical. I think they're artists. All these guys are artists that do movies. So you want to give them their due too. And that's something that I've always been a fan of. So, for me, it was getting the visual effects supervisor and Alec Gillis and team in the shop together very early on before the creatures was created. And they were there in the design process. Everyone was collaborating in the design process, in the build process. Once we were scanning the build, they were taking that scan and putting it into the computer. It's for visual effects. So like the process started hands-on from the beginning with everybody in the room. It wasn't like we had one division doing something and then we went to the next division months later after we did the movie. No, it was all hands on deck kind of a deal from the very beginning. My big thing is like, look, if we have a monster on screen, a werewolf that I'm shooting on screen, I do not want to touch him later. It's not like we touched him up later. That's what we shot. That is what they are on screen. If we need to have a visual effects on screen, then I do want a creature there to at least give scale and things like that. But also I needed the visual effects to feel as clunky as my practical guys did. And that's not a bad thing. That's just how guys in suits work, and you want them to feel like that. So it was a process to get that all to work together. It's a dance. But I think we were lucky enough in this movie that it blended really well. And there's things in there that even sometimes I kind of second guess, did we shoot that practical or was that CG? So there's some really fun elements there.
Yeah, and like the transformation scene in particular, I just thought was really well done because well, I mean, I'm not telling you anything new, like the old school, like the
Yeah.
Howling or American Werewolf in London, that was like completely I mean, various degrees of awesome and maybe a little clunky, but like yeah, I think like the CGI in that looks great. I mean, I have to say I think the CGI looks better than like some of these huge movies that I think that they just don't get that right.
Yeah,
Like
and
they
that's a tribute to these guys working hard from the very beginning, right? And really understanding what I was trying to do, and understanding the assignment. Really, like they just got it. And that was what was really fun on set. And to be honest, we knew from the beginning that the transformations were going to be like that, not because we didn't want to do it practically, but to be honest, I knew how kinetic the movie was going to be. I knew the movie's pacing, and I needed the transformations to match that sort of kinetic pacing and what the tone was in the movie. And so it felt like having that mix was going to work. And, it worked out in the end. Like you said, like the guys, they did a great job with it. It's a lot of fun in that sequence. It's an intense sequence. So it was really fun to shoot.
nice. And speaking of that scene, I love it because you initially have those like three people and like the one lady's like terrified, the got one guy's like hell yeah come on, like he's like I love that kind of you had three very different people going through this experience, and I thought that was such
Right.
a cool way to kind of in a way give you a little snapshot of like what it would be like to have that kind of burden and I don't know
Yeah,
like
and sort of a snapshot of what society might have been like with this. So even though we didn't get to dive too much into that, of like, man, there's people out there that want to turn. This is like a almost like a drug, right? Like
mm,
it's like this is happening again. I want to turn. I want to have some fun tonight. I want to go out and be a beast. There's a little bit of that. There's people that are worried about it, obviously. I mean, there's people that have to look at their neighbor and go, "Did you eat my kid last year?" Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of these society things that we didn't get to touch on as much as we wanted to because it's just such a big world that we needed to get this story told, and hopefully we can go much bigger and tell a much bigger story next. But that was our goal here, was to kind of land you in there and sort of let your brain run with what could have happened or be happening in the moment.
mm. Yeah, and that's I mean that's a great segue because like I think the world building is also really fantastic. Like it's it's just so meaty. Like you can really as you were saying, like really explore it or give yourself room to in the future. So I is there a guarantee that we might get a follow up or just like a
There is a fingers crossed. Like we've already been talking to the writer. Grillo is on board. It is really just a matter of, they got to see how the movie does. And that's all.
yeah,
An unfortunate thing is like the movie does well, great. We'll go make another one, because it makes sense. Yeah, it's something we really want to. And luckily, when the movie hits Blu-ray, they have a special edition Blu-ray coming out that will have some deleted scenes where there's a little more world building. And which there's some sequence in there that I loved, because we're dealing with underground dwellers and their whole underground city, but just didn't make the movie because the movie was so fast paced that when they hit that, it was like, we are really slowing down. But like, it's great DVD content, it's great Blu-ray content.
nice.
So I'm excited for you guys to see that. But you'll watch that and go, okay, we want to know this world. We want to see this world. And I think that's what I'm excited to maybe get to.
Yeah, I mean I can even see this like as like a really great series, like
Totally.
um not just a movie series but like a series. Real quick, I'm almost running out of time, but like you had um like I don't know, it's such a fantastic movie, and just to kind of wrap up, I was wondering like what you would love like the audience takeaway. Um,
Yeah, that's easy. I want the audience to come out feeling satisfied. I think this kind of a movie, when it's dealing with werewolves, it's the biggest one because you want to know that they're happy with the transformation, and you want to know they're happy with the werewolves. Like that's my biggest feeling is if they come out feeling satisfied, they got their money's worth for those two things. I think I did my job, and that's what I'm excited to see.
that's awesome. Well, I think it's fantastic, and y'all watching this, you need to check it out. So it's going to be a limited theatrical run. And um, do they have a date when it's going to be like a VOD situation?
So yeah, so we'll do theaters December 6th, and then we're gonna hit VOD PVOD situation, I believe is gonna be Christmas Eve.
Nice.
So,
All right.
it's a good plan for that. If you're sitting around the Christmas tree and you want some bloodshed, it's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. Listen, it's fun for the whole family. But seriously, y'all support this movie any way you can. It's awesome. Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Like I said, I've been such a big fan for a while, so
Yeah, man, thanks for having me on. This was really cool, and
yeah,
I'm sure we'll do it again.
absolutely.